The words hit me like a knife, sharp and cold, cutting straight through my heart. The greatest gift for our wedding is if you disappear from our family. My own daughter-in-law said that to me. I stood there frozen, hearing those words echo again and again, wondering how I, who had given nothing but love, could suddenly become the unwanted shadow in their perfect picture. But let me tell you this, what she didn't know was that life doesn't always go the way you plan. The very moment she wished me away became the start of something she could never have predicted. And when the tables turned, no one in the family saw it coming. Before I tell you everything, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means the world, and I'd love to hear what you think about my story. My name is Evelyn, and this is the most painful yet empowering story of my life. I wasn't expecting to ever hear such cruel words from the woman who had just married my only son, James. I remember the first time James introduced me to Clara. Yes, that's her name. She was elegant, beautiful, and had this smile that could light up a room. I thought to myself, finally, James has found someone who truly makes him happy. I welcomed her into my heart before she was even officially part of our family. I cooked her favorite meals when she visited, made her tea just the way she liked it, and even gave her a bracelet that belonged to my late mother. I thought I was building a bond. I thought I was gaining a daughter. But somewhere along the way, things changed. It started with little things, her sighs when I gave advice, her forced smiles when I joined their conversations. Then came the excuses. Oh, Evelyn, you don't have to come, whenever I asked about family dinners. I tried to ignore it, believing it was just the stress of planning a wedding, but then came those words. It was a week before the wedding, and I had offered to help Clara with some last-minute details. I thought I was being useful. Instead, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "The greatest gift you can give us is to disappear from our family." My breath caught. I laughed nervously at first, hoping she was joking, but her cold, steady stare told me otherwise. I walked out of her house that day with shaking hands and a heart heavier than I'd ever known. I cried the whole drive home, wondering how I had suddenly become such a burden. But I didn't say a word to James. I couldn't. I didn't want to spoil his wedding, his happiness. So I stayed quiet, swallowing my pain. The wedding day came, and I smiled through the tears no one saw. I sat there, dressed in the gown I had chosen weeks ago, watching my son marry the woman who wanted me gone. Every laugh, every cheer felt like salt on an open wound. But still, I clapped. Still, I smiled. Because that's what mothers do. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between us grew larger. Clara made sure of it. Invitations to dinners never came. When I called, James would answer with a rushed voice, saying, "Mom, I'll call you back." But the calls rarely came. One evening, I decided to stop by their house, thinking maybe I was overreacting, maybe if I just showed up with kindness, things would get better. But what I heard that night shattered me completely. I walked up their driveway, holding a pie I had baked, Clara's favorite. I could hear voices inside. Clara's, sharp and mocking. "Your mom is suffocating us, James. She acts like she belongs in every part of our life. I swear, sometimes I wish she'd just vanish." And then James, my sweet boy, the one I raised with all the love I had, sighed and said softly, "Maybe you're right." I dropped the pie. It shattered against the pavement, but not as much as my heart shattered in that moment. I turned and walked away, tears blinding me, each step heavier than the last. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing their voices, replaying every word. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made for James, working extra shifts so he could go to college, staying up nights when he was sick, cheering the loudest at every achievement. And now? Now I was too much. A burden. An obstacle in their perfect little life. But here's the thing about heartbreak, it can either destroy you, or it can fuel you. And something inside me shifted that night. I decided I wouldn't beg for their love. I wouldn't shrink myself to fit into a place where I wasn't wanted. No. I would rise. What Clara didn't know was that I had been holding back, staying small so James and his new wife could shine. But now I would step forward. Not to fight. Not to beg. But to reclaim my dignity. Because disappearing was never an option. And what happened next not only stunned Clara, but left the entire family speechless. That night, after hearing my son agree with Clara, I sat in my quiet living room with only the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. Every tick felt like a reminder that time was moving forward without me, that I was slowly being erased from their world. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't just let myself fade away. I had spent my entire life giving, my time, my energy, my love. I had poured everything into James so he could have the future I never did. And now, to be discarded like an old photograph? No. That wasn't going to be the end of my story. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I dug through old boxes, memories of the life I had built. In one box, I found something I hadn't looked at in years, documents from my late husband's estate. When my husband passed, I kept most of our financial matters private. James had been too young at the time to understand, and I never wanted him to feel pressure or worry. But in those files were investments, property deeds, and savings that Clara had no idea existed. That was when the seed of my plan was planted. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. My eyes were red from crying, but behind the pain was something stronger, resolve. I decided that if Clara thought I was going to disappear, she was going to learn just how wrong she was. I began making quiet moves. I reached out to an old friend, Margaret, who worked in real estate. I told her I was looking for something new, something just for me. Within a week, she showed me a cottage on the edge of town. It wasn't huge, but it was beautiful, surrounded by trees, with a small garden in the back and a fireplace in the living room. Standing there, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. I bought the cottage in cash, using money from my husband's investments. Clara didn't know. James didn't know. No one knew but me. And for the first time, that secret felt like power. In the weeks that followed, I poured myself into making that cottage my own. I painted the walls, planted flowers in the garden, and filled the rooms with the warmth I had been missing. Every brushstroke, every nail hammered into place was a declaration: I am not disappearing. I am still here. But life has a strange way of circling back. One afternoon, as I was arranging books on a shelf, my phone rang. It was Grandpa, my late husband's father. He was 87 years old and sharper than most people half his age. He asked me to come visit him. When I arrived, he sat me down in his study and asked me one simple question: Evelyn, what's going on with James? He doesn't bring his wife around, and when I ask about you, he changes the subject. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told him everything: Clara's cruel words, James's silence, and the distance that had grown between us. Grandpa listened quietly, his eyes dark with disappointment. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said something I'll never forget. People who forget their roots forget themselves. But Evelyn, don't worry. The truth always finds its way back. I left his house that day with tears in my eyes, but also with a strange comfort. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining the cruelty. And someone else finally knew the truth. Meanwhile, James and Clara carried on as if I didn't exist. Weeks turned into months. I wasn't invited to dinners, birthdays, or holidays. At first, it broke me. But slowly, I started to feel stronger. The more they tried to erase me, the more determined I became to build a life that didn't depend on their approval. One day, Clara called me out of the blue. Her voice was sweet, too sweet. Evelyn, we're hosting a dinner this weekend. James thought it would be nice if you joined us. I froze. Part of me wanted to laugh at the sudden change. Another part of me was cautious. Why now? After months of silence, why invite me back? Still, a tiny flicker of hope lit inside me. Maybe, just maybe, things were changing. I agreed to go. That Saturday, I dressed carefully and brought a bottle of wine. When I walked into their house, Clara greeted me with that same dazzling smile I once admired, but this time it felt hollow. The table was set beautifully, candles flickering, plates gleaming. Guests filled the room, friends, co-workers, neighbors. I took a seat, but almost immediately I realized the dinner wasn't about family. It was about showing off. Clara was in her element, laughing loudly, touching James's arm, and dropping subtle remarks that made it clear she was the star of the evening. Then it happened. One of the guests raised a glass and said, "Clara, you're so lucky. James comes from such a wonderful family. Evelyn, you must be so proud." Before I could respond, Clara chuckled and said, "Oh, Evelyn? She's just around." The table erupted in awkward laughter. My cheeks burned. James looked down at his plate, silent. Not a word to defend me. Not a word to stop her. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I smiled, but it wasn't the smile of someone defeated. It was the smile of someone holding a secret. Because while Clara thought she had all the power, she had no idea about the cottage. No idea about the investments. No idea that the family she wanted to push me out of wasn't hers to control. The dinner ended, and as I drove back to my cottage, the fire in my chest burned brighter than ever. I wasn't going to let Clara erase me. If she wanted me gone, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. Because sometimes, the greatest gift isn't disappearing, it's standing tall, unshaken, and proving that no one can take away who you are. And what happened next not only shocked Clara but changed James's life forever. The night of that dinner haunted me for days. Clara's words replayed over and over in my mind, "She's just around." It wasn't just cruel, it was dismissive, like I was nothing more than a shadow in their lives. And James's silence, that hurt more than anything. My own son couldn't find the courage to defend me. But instead of breaking me, it solidified something deep within. I had kept my strength hidden for too long. I had stepped back so James could build his own life, but in doing so, I had allowed Clara to rewrite my place in the family. That was about to change. A week later, Grandpa called me again. His voice was firm this time. "Evelyn, I've been thinking about what you told me. I want you to come to the family gathering this Sunday. Everyone will be there, James, Clara, the cousins. And I want you to come as you are, not as they expect you to be." I hesitated. The thought of facing Clara again made my stomach twist. But Grandpa rarely asked for anything. If he was calling me to stand tall, I owed it to him, and to myself, to show up. Sunday arrived. I wore a simple but elegant dress, one my husband used to love. As I walked into Grandpa's grand living room, all eyes turned toward me. Clara's smile faltered for just a second before she composed herself. James looked nervous, shifting in his seat. Grandpa cleared his throat and began to speak. "Family, I've gathered you all here because I want to talk about legacy. About respect. About what it means to belong." His eyes landed on me. "Evelyn, you've been silent for too long. It's time for everyone to hear your side." The room went quiet. My heart pounded in my chest, but I knew this was the moment. I stood, my hands trembling slightly, and began to speak. "I have loved this family with everything I have. I raised James with the values of kindness, loyalty, and respect. I welcomed Clara with open arms. But somewhere along the way, I became invisible. My presence was treated as a burden, my love dismissed as interference. Clara shifted uncomfortably. "That's not fair," she began, but Grandpa held up his hand, silencing her. I continued, my voice steady now. "You asked me to disappear, Clara. To vanish so you could have your perfect picture. But here's the truth, you don't get to erase me. I built the foundation this family stands on. And whether you like it or not, I am not going anywhere." Gasps echoed around the room. James looked down, shame written across his face. Clara's cheeks flushed crimson. Then, I revealed the part no one saw coming. For months, I've been rebuilding my life. I bought a cottage, created a home of my own, and secured the investments my late husband left behind. I didn't do it to spite anyone, I did it because I realized my worth doesn't depend on being accepted by those who wish to push me aside. Clara's eyes widened. She hadn't known about the cottage. She hadn't known about the investments. The power she thought she held suddenly slipped through her fingers. Grandpa leaned forward, his voice booming. "Evelyn has shown more strength and dignity than most of us here. And let me be very clear, anyone who disrespects her disrespects this entire family." The silence was heavy. Clara's perfect smile was gone, replaced by a tight, angry line. James finally looked up, his eyes wet with guilt. "Mom," he whispered, "I'm sorry. I should have defended you. I let Clara's words cloud my judgment. Please forgive me." Tears pricked my eyes, but I held firm. "James, I will always love you. But forgiveness doesn't erase the hurt. You'll have to earn back my trust, not just ask for it." The room stayed tense until Grandpa broke it with a clap of his hands. "That's settled. Evelyn is as much a part of this family as anyone else, and if anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with me." His gaze locked on Clara, who looked away. In that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, seen. The gathering ended, but the shift in the air lingered. James walked me to my car afterward, his voice soft. "Mom, I don't know why I stayed silent for so long. I thought keeping peace with Clara was more important, but I see now how wrong I was. I want to fix this." I nodded. "Then start by standing up, James. Not just for me, but for what's right." Weeks passed, and slowly, James began to show effort. He called more often, visited my cottage, and even helped in the garden. Clara, however, stayed distant. She didn't apologize, not directly, but her hostility softened, at least in public. Maybe it was Grandpa's words, maybe it was the realization that she couldn't erase me. Either way, the battle she tried to start had shifted in my favor. But here's the truth I want everyone to take away: sometimes the greatest strength comes from refusing to disappear. When someone tries to silence you, to make you feel like you don't matter, the most powerful thing you can do is stand tall and reclaim your voice. Clara may have wished me gone, but I am still here. And I am stronger than ever. Because dignity isn't given, it's claimed. And I claimed mine back the day I stopped letting others decide my worth. This isn't just my victory. It's a reminder for anyone who has ever felt unwanted or invisible: you are not disposable. And one day, when you choose to rise, those who tried to erase you will be forced to see you for who you truly are.